Welcome to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are on a mission to interview women and the occasional token man about how their passion and purpose have collided to create healthy relationships and profitable businesses. I am Elizabeth Denham here with Rebecca Monet, my co-host and the co-founder of The Coterie for Women. Rebecca, how's your week going so far in the middle of the week?
I've been traveling, as you know,
Yes.
from the Midwest. I'm back home in San Diego. It's such a good feeling. You get off the airplane and we have the freshest, most breathable air on the planet here in San Diego. So it's good to be home.
Yeah, you really do. It's such a nice, just cleansing.
It is. It's a salt water, right? It's a saltwater air, I think is what it is.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Well, good. I'm glad you're home safe. So roses and thorns, are we ready?
Yeah. What's yours? What's your rose and thorn this week?
Okay. So I don't know why this is so much fun, but merch is fun.
Merch is fun.
Merch is fun. So we got our little mug. You might've been seeing it on social media. It's got the face and then it's got the Coterie for Women on the back.
Hey, wait, turn it around. Because I think the lips, the other side.
Oh, sorry.
I think it matches my lipstick.
Oh, I think it does. See, you're branded and you didn't even know it.
Oh man, I love it.
But anyway, I think it's so cute. It's got a little black inside. It's just the cutest little thing. So I have two because my husband doesn't drink coffee, but I don't know, somebody might with me.
Just in case, I'll be prepared.
I could have a guest. So that's fun. And then we have other stuff coming out. That I got a t-shirt coming in the mail. I just wanted to, see if they were right before we started really promoting them, make sure that everything looked good and was whatever. So that was kind of fun. My little excitement for the day. Thorny, I will tell you, I'm on repeat. It's the stupid hurricane number 3 in about a month and a half. Luckily, this one's going closer to New Orleans, but it's coming straight this way. And I think it's elevated to a category 2, which is over 100-mile-an-hour winds. So by the time it gets here, we should get 30 to 50-mile-an-hour gusts, which is not terrible. It's not 100. But I tell you what, this late in the year, we're close to November. It's almost the end of the season. This is not okay. I've had it. Mm-hmm. We are all going, like the whole group of the Gulf Coast is a little insane between the pandemic and the weather. We're just punch drunk. We're just all going to drink all the time.
Yeah.
Told my husband, I need you to go get me some wine because I have hump day happy hour after this. And I was like, and I need to get it through the storm. And he's like, you need wine to get through the storm? I'm like, yeah.
That's right.
Of course you do.
Are you going to put it in your new mug, new Coterie mug?
I think I will. We need to find a wine glass. I want to get a little etched wine glass or something. But I'm thinking I'm going to drink our happy hour out of the mug.
Why not? Live on the edge.
Happier. Yeah. So what about you? Roses and thorns.
Oh, so let's start with the thorn. As you know, I bought a house in Northwest Arkansas on Beaver Lake. So I'm on a golf course, and then just kind of across the street is the lake. And it's a fixer-upper. There's a true fixer-upper, which is exciting, but it had mold.
Oh, no.
And so, of course, it's getting remediated and all that's being handled. But suffice it to say, we had to rip out 2 complete bathrooms. I mean, they are down to they're down to the studs. In fact, in the master bathroom, there's not even a floor anymore. There's nothing there. It's just looking down into a crawl space kind of thing.
Wow.
Of course, I'm in California trying to manage this process, and I'm having to see video and pictures and negotiate with people to have all of this stuff done. So that's the horrible stuff, is being away from it. I don't mind the destruction and the reconstruction, and I love that kind of stuff.
That's kind of fun.
But it's not being there to inspect it myself or to see what's going on. So that's kind of the thorny piece, where I'm having to trust others' eyes and others' feedback, people I don't know. So that's really tested my, what can I say? My wherewithal.
I was going to say your control freaky side.
Yeah,
You're not a control freak, but in that I would be, who's not when it's your bathroom?
Yeah, I'm not a control freak.
No.
But when you're talking your home or your car or your teeth or your health, there's relationships that you built. And in this case, I'm building brand new relationships and I don't know those people yet. And so I'm having to trust. But anyway, it's going to be so exciting. It's going to be.
That's fun. And rebuilding the bathroom will be fun because you get to pick everything.
I know. It's a lot of. It's a lot of fun. So the rose out of all of this, besides being closer to my kids and my grandkids, is do you know car insurance is a whole lot cheaper? And
I would imagine it would be. The traffic's got to be different.
It's just different. So I was shocked. There's, cost of living is less, but I just didn't expect car insurance to be that much less. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
A perk, another perk
for moving cross country.
Giving up a little weather, but you're saving a little money. So
yeah, the weather, that's Elizabeth, that's going to be, that's a tough one.
Well, and you're moving right before winter. So we'll see if you have buyer's remorse.
When I landed in San Diego on Monday and I stepped onto the curb at the airport and I could breathe that air and it was a perfect temperature, I'm like, oh boy, am I going to be able to handle not living in San Diego anymore?
Well, then you're going to land back in Missouri and the little grandchildren are going to parade themselves out and you're going to be like, okay, this is why.
It's all worth it.
Yeah. So it's a little cold.
Yeah, whatever. At least we don't have Alabama hurricanes, right?
True. Very true. You can always be grateful for that. Anytime you're feeling a little bad, you can just think about Alabama, Florida,
there you go.
Louisiana, Mississippi. Yeah, we're in hurricane hell right now.
Yes, you are. I don't know how you do it, but hey, just strap yourself down and.
Well, the kids are out of school. They got half a day off today. They're out tomorrow. They're okay with it. They've been out of school more than they've been in a school this year, I think.
What a life.
Yeah.
I want to be a kid.
I guess so. Who knows? We may have a whole generation that's a little behind.
Or not. They self-teaching themselves. So we'll see.
Virtual school. Yeah. We'll see how it all goes. Well, good. It sounds like our weeks are both not too terrible. Mild thorns, if any. So good news. And we will be back next time for more roses and thorns. Welcome back to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are here today with a very special guest. Rebecca, tell us who we have.
We have Charity Rausch. I want you to meet Charity. She was born in Indiana and has lived in Zionsville for the last 17 years. She's married to Adam, and they have 3 children, Mason, Parker, and Avery, and a dog named Lola. For the last 6 years, Charity has owned a Wild Birds Unlimited franchise in Noblesville, Indiana. In July 2019, she purchased her second franchise unit in Carmel, Indiana. Charity's professional background until Wild Birds Unlimited had always revolved around corporate retail with a ton of travel. Her husband also traveled for his job. This scenario was just not working for them, so she made the change and started working at Indiana University in Bloomington as a visiting lecturer in the Retail Studies department. Charity found she had a passion for teaching, coaching, and helping others. Although she loved working at Indiana University, it was miles away in Bloomington. And of course, that made it difficult to raise a family when she's commuting 5 days a week. She then found a job at Wild Birds Unlimited as a business coach in the Franchise Support Center. This job and the Wild Birds Unlimited culture completely changed her life. She worked at the franchise office for 4 years before she herself bought a franchise store. Charity wanted to emulate the Wild Birds culture that she loves so much in her own business: professionalism, kindness, respect, understanding, and connection. Her focus for her own business is always on people, her employees, and her customers. Welcome, Charity. We're so delighted to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Whew, you had quite the story, girl.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing it coming from you.
Isn't it? Yeah, when you hindsight is always so fascinating when you
It
look back
is.
and
It's like,
look where I came from, and then
it's
I
like,
went
okay,
to
I
this
get that.
hospital,
Yeah,
and then I had this fork in the road, and I did this thing, and then that led me to this other thing.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. That's right. That's what I did.
So Charity, you talked about, I'm sorry, Rebecca, I always seem to start when you start.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
That kind of leads us into the first question we wanted to talk to you about. And one of the things that I think is very common in women as you change through the phases of life is having one plan and finding out that it is not the plan you're going to continue on as your life situation changes. So tell us a little bit about what you always thought your life would look like and then what it does look like now.
Well, in the early 20s, in college, when I was, trying to figure out what I was going to do for my career, I was definitely one of those girls that was like, no, I'll get married, sure, but definitely not going to have kids, and everything's going to be really career focused. That's definitely going to be my plan. And, I kind of set out towards that plan. And then, got married, which changed things again. But then the biggest change was my son, Parker, who was 15. So 15 years ago when I had him. And that was kind of my biggest change, because obviously I said I wasn't going to have children, and, I was going to have a career. And then he came into my life, and that changed me and changed everything else that I was focused on.
It's interesting. My generation, Charity, we didn't think about not having children. It was just a known fact. You got married, you had children. It was kind of a path that was already designed. But in your case, it was an option. It was an option to choose to not have children or to have children. So how did your life change from, I'm going to be a career woman and I'm going to, go on these adventures, and I'm going to have these, life is, an unencumbered individual. So what changed once Parker came into your life?
Well, everything changed when he came into my life. But I think the biggest change was my focus and my focus then at that point, because when he came into my life, I was like, okay, whoa, this is really pretty powerful. And I get like, I want to be a better person, because this person is looking up to me and spending all their time with me for the most part. And he changed me in the fact that I wanted to be just a better person, so that he had a great person to look up to as he was growing up. So that was probably the biggest change. And then surprisingly, it was, my focus had always been on my career, but then my focus changed to focusing on him and the family, and our family, just the values and the goals that I had for our family. So I still didn't probably know this at the time. I still wanted what I wanted, but my focus and my decisions were still always based around what was best for the family and best for the children.
So
what decisions change? Here I go again. We need to raise our hand. You go, Rebecca.
So, obviously, when you have this little bundle of joy and also keeping up all night, how you spend your time is different. But you also mentioned your decisions were different along the way. So some of that included, I'm not going to drive back and forth to Bloomington to do this career because it takes me away from my little one. And how you spent your time. So tell us about that process of making that decision, how difficult that was, and then how you regrouped when you chose to leave the university.
Well, like you had mentioned before, my career had really been about corporate retail. I was married to my husband at the time, so I was traveling quite a bit. And Parker was born when I was still working and traveling corporate retail. So at 8 weeks old, 7.5 weeks old, I left him for a whole week to travel. I was back to work and traveling with my job. So that was a big pivotal point with that. And then my husband traveled too. So it was a lot of coordinating and a really tough way to balance when you travel. I know those of you that travel understand. When I, making that decision, it was like, okay, this is not what I want. Like, I loved the job and I liked the job, but I didn't want to be away from him like that. I didn't want to hire people or have my family help out to take care of him. I wanted to be doing it. So at that point, when I was working corporate retail and I had Parker, I had emailed a lecturer, a professor I had at IU, who was my mentor. And I had emailed her, how do you do this? Like, she had children at the time. She had children when I was in college, when I was a college student, saying, I'm never going to have children and I'm never going to do this. I was watching her do that, have children and have a career. And I emailed her and I was like, Mrs. Schaefer, how do you do this? How do you find the work-life balance? What do you do? Like, this is hard. I'm struggling. And her advice back to me was that you can't have it all the time. You can have it all, but you can't have it all at all times. Mm-hmm. And then she was like, oh, and by the way, we're hiring for this job that I think you'd be perfect at IU. So that's what transitioned me to the university, was her saying, what your expectations are and what you're thinking is going to happen is not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, then I need to move on with my career and find something that works better with my family. So that's what moved me from corporate retail to Indiana University, working for them for those 4 years that I was there. And that was, seemed like a good, a lateral decision and a lateral move, because I was going into retail. So I had been doing that for many, many years. So I was excited about that, but I had never taught or lectured before. So I had a huge learning curve there, but it, like you said, I learned that it was like a huge passion of mine, connecting with people and students and mentoring and teaching and coaching. I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. Had I not known that. So of course I believe that happened for a reason then, that I ended up there.
Because I think that it's kind of cool that you discovered this new passion, but also how scary was it for you? Because you were making a career change, which is something you had been hyper focused on, and you want this happy home life that's designed the way you want it to be designed.
Yes.
But there still needs to be a level of job satisfaction so that you don't hate going to work and hate that part of your life. So how scary was it to transition into something completely new in terms of that side of it? You knew you were going to be able to balance your home life better, but I would imagine you had been trepidatious about making such a big change.
You know what? It was petrifying. And I did a ton of research. I asked everybody I had access to at Indiana University, how do you run your classes? How do you do it? I mean, it was truly something I had never done before. Mm-hmm. So I had to do a lot of research and talk to a lot of people. And quite honestly, and this is just me and myself and my opinion, it was like, I was finally figuring it out when I left. It was like, oh, I got it. Oh, and now the kids have changed and things have changed again. And now I need to change. It was like, I really felt like I had finally got it figured out, and then I left.
Oh, funny. That's how it always works out.
I agree with that. It was like, I had spent all those 4 years working on it. And then when I kind of had a good handle on it, it was like, oh, okay, now it's time to move and change. So
to change again. So you mentioned that the feeling was this was meant to be, even though it was a dramatic change and all kinds of trepidation and fear came up, you stepped into it. And your feeling either at the moment or in hindsight it was meant to be. Mm-hmm. Was that in large part because it took you to the next step, or how did you know it was meant to be?
I think it was because I was so happy there, and I felt I was so rewarded, and it was such a rewarding job and such a rewarding career. That's how I judged that, because it was, and I felt like, it really was a stepping stone into the next chapter for me. So, I enjoyed it so much. I was sad to leave. It was a really hard job to leave. But what made it so fantastic to leave was I was going into Wild Birds Unlimited, which I didn't know at the time, but I was going to Wild Birds Unlimited to be a business coach. So to continue to coach and teach. So I felt like it was a really like a win-win for me. I was going to be in Carmel, Indiana, so local. And then I was going to be teaching others, what I knew, and then what I was going to learn from Wild Birds Unlimited. So to me, it felt like a win-win. So it was a hard job to leave, but I feel like it was meant to be. I feel like I was taken in the path. God took me in the place that I was meant to go in.
It certainly sounds like God had a plan for you and was moving you even through your fear in the right direction. This whole show is about where passion and purpose collide, and profits are made and relationships are forged. And it's just fascinating to me that when you got through your fear, you discovered your passion and you discovered your gifting and you discovered who you really were, which was someone that was a teacher and a coach and a mentor and all of those things. And so many of us, we fall prey to that fear and we seize up rather than seizing the opportunity, right? In your case, you walked through it. So I really have to acknowledge you for that.
Well, it didn't mean that it wasn't scary and that I didn't cry some tears over it, because that happened.
I believe you.
Yeah.
Especially when I went from the franchise office at Wild Birds Unlimited to owning my own business.
Yeah.
That was pretty scary. Pretty
well,
scary.
I could imagine. And so the good stuff is always hard. Don't you find that? It's
yes.
Yeah.
Like our kids. Like our children.
Oh yeah. Hardest thing you'll ever do, but best thing in the world. So what in your life had changed to the point that you transitioned from the university life to Wild Birds to franchise ownership? How did that go along with the decisions that you needed to make for your family?
So the decision from Indiana University to Wild Birds Unlimited was, again, based on my son. So that job I was teaching, they had stacked everything I did 2 days a week in Bloomington. So I was only commuting 2 days a week, which left me time to do the family stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, as the job progressed and I was there longer, I was commuting 5 days a week. And that's about an hour and a half commute one way. So what was happening was my husband was traveling. I was down in Bloomington teaching. I had some night classes that I was teaching. So I was having to hire someone to pick Parker up, get him dinner, and put him to bed. So no one was here to do that. And that's what I do. That's what I want to do, is to do that part of the parenting. And it became to a point where I was like, I'm not going to hire somebody 4 days a week to take care of my child. That's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the decision that I had come to. Now, of course, then I had to then there was the, what am I going to do then decision, because, I still had to work and I wanted to work. And so, I started searching the internet for a job locally in central Indiana, and came across the job at Wild Birds Unlimited. I had never heard of it, never fed the birds. My mom does, my grandfather did. But I was like, this is in Indiana? I'd never heard of that. And so I interviewed with them, and I was like, okay, this is a really cool place to work. This is a really cool job. And it puts me local. Mm-hmm. It puts me local. I'm not in Bloomington, I'm local. And so I was like, okay, this is it. This is my job. So I took the job there. And really the biggest decision factor from my job at the corporate office to a franchise job was my husband and I's overall goal and decision. So he was still working a full-time job, which he still does now. He traveled a lot still. And then I was working at the franchise office, traveling still. or back to travel. It went back to traveling, and we just couldn't. It was really tough to work out. If you are experiencing two people traveling in your family, it is very, very hard.
Mhm.
And so we, but these are the careers we chose, the careers we wanted, and where we liked things going. And so we were like, so what can we do to, continue our careers, but change this? And so we decided the only option was to own our own business. I mean, that's what we felt like it came down to.
Mm-hmm.
So we did research, we looked around. We wanted to stay local. The local stores here in Indiana were already owned by somebody. So we couldn't open a store or purchase a local store. So we started looking around for other things. And again, meant to be, one of the local owners called me at the franchise office and said, "Hey, can you help me pull some information together? We want to put our store up for sale." And I was like,
Wow.
"What?" Well,
Wow.
I'm kind of interested. And they were like, "What?" And so that's kind of how it happens. That's kind of where we were with it. We were just looking for what was next and what would best fit our family and our ultimate goals. And then I feel like that was just given to me in my lap with them getting ready to sell. So it was tough decision to leave a career to go into a business that you don't really know what's going to happen or what to do. And we had made the decision, and we were sitting on our screened-in porch one night, my husband and I, having a glass of wine, talking about what we were doing. And I just started laughing hysterically, like I couldn't stop myself from laughing, just laughing hysterically. And then I started crying hysterically as well, like sobbing, And it was back and forth, the laugh, the crying, the laugh, the crying. And he finally looked at me and goes, "Should I call your mom?"
Wise man.
That's when you know it's bad. Should I call your mom?
That is exactly right. Like that's the only time he's ever said that in my marriage so far.
Too funny.
At that point. And I was like, "No, I don't want you to call my mother." And I was like, "I'm just dealing with the emotions," right? I was just, all of a sudden they hit me and I just didn't know what to think about them. So that was kind of a pivotal point. And then it's been fantastic since there, honestly. Owning the business, owning the franchises has been fantastic. But yeah, I was super emotional and didn't know what to do. And he didn't either.
It's like a
That's
tidal
hilarious.
wave of emotion. And it's
hit
true.
me.
It's such a big decision to choose to own your own franchise, to be in business for yourself, that it really is a lot of unfamiliar emotions. It's not like you've done this 1,000 times. So I'm so glad you brought it up, because our listeners are folks that are thinking about owning a business or already do, and to acknowledge that this is a huge emotional thing where you swing in from absolute delight and pleasure and laughing to, "Oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into?"
What
Tears.
have I done? Yeah, like, what have I done? So yes, it was, we laugh about it now because, he wanted to call my mother.
Yes.
That's funny.
Which was, I thought, very smart. And no, we're good. And it's too late. She's in bed. That's the other thing I thought, like, maybe, but she's in bed. So that was a huge, just emotional point for me. But like I said, it's been great since then. And then there was a second emotional point when the second store came on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was very similar to that first emotion, just like, whoa, okay, like, woof, just got to work through those sometimes.
And I think this experience is so important to talk about, because I think so often we see other people, and when we interview people, they talk about, well, I did this and then I did that and then I did this, and it's kind of matter of fact, and it's kind of like, it seems easier than it is when you tell the story. And so for you to be able to include the fact that it was terrifying, and he did offer to call your mom, which is just too great. It's such a great thing. But what advice do you give? And I do think you've been very bold in your decisions, because you've made major career decisions for the betterment of your family and, unknowingly for the betterment of your career as well. What would you tell people? Because I have friends who have been paralyzed by fear, and I had a friend who stayed in a crappy job that she was getting paid crap for, and they didn't treat her well, and it stole time from her kids. She was a single mom, but she never got off, jumped off to try to do the next thing. And so I do think, even if you're laughing hysterically and crying hysterically in the same 5 minutes, it's still a bold decision. I think sometimes that kind of boldness is terrifying. So what would you tell to somebody who is in that space where they're immobilized by fear, or they don't have that faith to take that leap or jump out and try something different that could really turn out to be the best thing in the world?
Wow, that's tough. I don't know that I have any profound advice, except for it can't be any worse than the situation that you're in and how you're feeling then.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how I look at it. Like I had, in that situation, talking about it very matter of factly, you're right. I left out all the, should I do this or should I do that? And all the, what do I do and how I'm feeling part of it. And, for me, I just got to a point where it's like, I'm going to take the leap, because I feel like the risk can't be any less risky or more risky than it was, where I'm at right now. I think
that's a good way to look at it, is because the unknown is scary no matter how we look at it. But if where we are isn't allowing us the kind of lifestyle we want, and you had a very clear picture of what it meant to be a family and to be a mom and to be a wife, you had a very clear picture, and it wasn't lining up with your current career life. And then when you trusted your next decision, that says, okay, if I'm in alignment with what's important to me, what my values are, then I will be able to better express myself and have greater balance in my life. But you're right. I think sometimes the decision boils down to just, it can't be any worse than where I am now.
Yeah,
right?
And, there is that. But then I think too, hearing, both of you say that, I honestly still go back to, I believe that I'm trusting God, even though his plan's not always what I think it should be or where I want it, but that he's going to guide me and push me to where I need to be. And if I'm not letting him do that, then I'm going to feel more stuck.
Yeah, it's interesting, that you bring up God in this, because the scriptures tell us 365 times to not fear. Fear is not of God. So if we're holding on to something out of fear and security and whatever, and you're feeling, it's time to take a risk, it's time to step outside my comfort zone, that God has my hand, or he's going to come alongside, that's a wonderful feeling to know there's a master plan for your life. You've not been given it in advance. Therefore, you have to,
which is a total bummer, by the way.
I agree.
Right? Total bummer. But I think you're right, though. I think it's said 365 times, you said, because it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And
so
he knows
hard.
And he knows it's hard. So, I think that's the reason why, is because it's mentioned. When it's mentioned a lot, it's important, and it's hard. It's just why love is mentioned so many times too. Do you know how many times it's mentioned?
No, tell me.
Oh, I was hoping you
I should have looked it up.
It was a test, Rebecca.
I should have just made up some number, right? And you would have believed me.
There you go.
More than fear, I'm sure.
It's at least 7 times the fear. I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got
at least the magic number 7.
Got to be.
Oh, that's great. So in the process of this, I think your decisions express the love that you have for your family. And when we did our pre-interview, you talked a lot about the love of a child and understanding what that kind of love meant. And I think that's one reason you've been so bold, is because, in addition to having that faith that you're going to be on the right path, you've also had this unwavering love for your family, an idea of what
Yes.
you want it to look like. So tell us a little bit about that, like that realization when you have these kids that you are going to make this life work in a way that benefits all of you and helps you all thrive.
So when our pre-interview, we had chatted about that, and then I was thinking about it a little bit more, and I was working corporate retail when Parker was born, which I had mentioned, and he was probably, I don't know, 2 months old or so, which I feel like is so little. And I was at a corporate retreat for team building, and we were doing a bunch of team building exercises, and they were asking questions about, pivotal moments in your life, essentially. And I was not quite 30 at the time. And I was like, pivotal moments in my life? Ooh. The only one I had was him. I was, it was Parker's birth, because he changed my life at that point in time. I was like, okay, I get love a little bit. I get love. Like I thought I had it figured out before, but then having him was just a whole new picture of what love really meant. And I had a girlfriend who had told me, you can understand God's love a little bit more when you become a mother and you know how you feel about your children and your child. And she was right. You love them no matter what. You just do. No matter what, you love them.
Even when they're teenagers.
Yeah.
Even when they're 15. Yes.
Yeah. You don't have to like them, but you still love them.
Absolutely.
You love them. It really, yes, you're exactly right. And I think that, relates back. It's like, you love them. You don't agree with their choices. You don't agree with their path all the time. You don't agree what they're doing. And maybe it's not the path you had intended, but you always love them.
Oh yeah. My husband and I joke that free will sucks. Like,
it's true.
Free will sucks so bad.
It is.
Every time they do something a little off the path, we're like, well, free will. There it is.
Yeah, there it is.
I
They're going to do their thing.
You can't control anybody.
No.
And,
no.
No.
But that's why we love them, so that we can tolerate them as they go through the phases of life that are less fun than others, and then they come back around. We have a couple in their 20s now, and they're just it's so much fun.
I've heard that. I have heard
it's fun. Yeah.
When they hit their 20s, they're like, they get it a little bit again. They're like, whoa, okay, now I see how I look.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
It'll happen. Hang in. My 20-year-old went to college, and his first year he called me and he said, thank you so much for making me uncomfortable every day of my life, because now I'm comfortable in any situation at college. And I was
like, yay, okay.
So
that's brilliant.
It's coming.
That's a win. That's a win.
I'll never forget that moment.
Yes. It's like when they say their first word, but now it's like so serious now.
Now they can think, it's so much more exciting. But I think that, so tell us how, especially with the shutdown, you've been able to incorporate your kids into your business life and what is that teaching them, do you think?
Well, so my 15-year-old, even my 18-year-old, who's my stepson, even when we bought the second store, he was involved right away. They helped us we did construction in there and tear down. So he was involved in, vacuuming and taking out the trash and those kind of things, which was fantastic. My 15-year-old, who's with me all the time, obviously, when they were in shutdown at the beginning of 2020, he worked every Friday. So he had to go in and unload our bird food deliveries, which are anywhere from, 1,000 to 3,000 pounds of bird food every week. So he got, good exercise, and he was doing that for, I don't know, probably about 4 months until he started his extracurricular activities in high school. So he's been doing that. And then I have a 3-year-old who is all about servicing the customers, all about helping the customer, she tells me. So she went to work with me last Sunday as a witch. And she, my only rule was that when I was talking to someone, she couldn't talk to me. So when we were finished with the day, she said, Mom, I didn't talk when you talked to the customers, and we're here to service the customers. And I said, you're right. So they, she is my all about the customers person when it comes to the kids. And then my son, Parker, he's a little more vocal, being 15. So if there's anything going on in the store, his response is definitely, well, Mom, you didn't train him well enough, and looks like you need to work on him a little bit more. So I love that because, that's focusing in on what we can do to improve and not focusing in on a critique or something with the employee. So I love that, even though he thinks it's hilarious to blame me for something. I see that as a positive.
I think you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed. It's wonderful to have the children part of the business. They can see that they are indeed the priority. These decisions were based because of the family, and yet you're building a business, a Wild Birds business, and they get to see you making decisions as it relates to your employees and your customers, etc. And they get to see your work ethic and your customer service. So this is just beautiful. So Charity, we don't have any more questions for you, but I have a feeling 1,000 people out there do. So here's my last question for you.
Okay.
If people wanted to learn more about how you've grown this business or learn more about Wild Birds Unlimited, how would they get hold of you?
So if you're just looking to learn about Wild Birds Unlimited, I would say go to WBU.com, so WalterBoyUmbrella.com, and that will link you to franchise information. If you want to get hold of me, I'm happy to provide an email address. Is that something I would do on air or something that you all would do for me?
Sure.
Okay. So it's CARAUSCH, so CARoush00@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing your life's journey and telling us about how you balanced all these things in your life and the passion you have both for the business and for your family. We really appreciate the time you've taken with us today, Charity.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
What do you think is the #1 challenge for franchisors? You got it, getting the right fit franchisee. And as you know, poor fit franchisees are often poor performers. Poor fit franchisees cost more to train and support. Poor fit franchisees are rarely satisfied or compliant, which can lead to validation issues. Not a good place to be. But now there is a solution. Zoracle Profile's scientific spot-on match program. Working with top broker groups in franchising, Zoracle has created a platform that scientifically matches the broker's candidate to the right fit franchise brand. Spot On Match predicts the compatibility, performance, and viability of a prospective franchisee. Spot On Match gives the franchise development team a data-driven and scientific approach to selling franchises. This is how it works. Zoracle works with each franchisor to establish their top performer blueprint. This research assesses current franchisees to determine the key psychographic indicators that separate high performers from mid to low performing franchisees. The final result of the research is the brand's Eclipse report, which compares prospective franchisees to a franchise system's high performers. Finally, brokers are running a spot-on profile on each of their franchise prospects. These profiles are then scientifically bumped up against the franchisor's high performer algorithms, and the match process begins. Dashboards are built for the franchisor and the broker to make sure the process is smooth and trackable. Right Fit matches instantly. Find out how you can be a spot-on match member. Save time. Stop guessing. Start matching. Call Zoracle Profiles.
Welcome to Women in the Know, where we discuss everything from politics and policy to relationships and marketing. We take the things that we have learned, the things that we have learned from each other, from our businesses, from our lives, from our interviews, to share with you so that we can all learn a little something extra. So Rebecca, this topic this week is, we talked to Charity Roush today, and she talked about the change of course. She went from a place where she expected one thing, and as she grew in her life, changed directions. So the importance of that willingness to not stay put when there might be something better for you out there. So what was your takeaway from that?
I think it was just that
Mm-hmm.
she was willing to dramatically change her life, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And that took a lot of courage for her to do that. You used the word brave, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it was bravery that allowed her to do that. And I thought it was interesting because it's kind of counter a woman's wiring, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're tend to be a little more risk averse as women than men, right?
Right.
And so we hold on to that job, or we stay in that situation because it's paying the mortgage, or doing certain things that provide us the security. And yet she consciously calculated, this is where I am. These are my values around family, and children and marriage. And this thing I'm doing is no longer aligning up with this important thing of family. So she made several changes to accommodate what was more important to her than security and safety and a career and prestige and title, to take care, to have this family, to take care of her children. So I thought it was incredibly brave. And I don't think all of us as women are really wired to do what she did.
I think a lot of times women fulfill expectations, either set by themselves or others, husbands, parents, spouses, society. And I think that does make change harder sometimes, because you would have to buck someone's expectation. And one thing she didn't talk about, but I have observed in her and other women who have been successful in business, is the fact that they make these decisions not without fear and not without concern that whether it's the right decision or not, but they make these decisions without concern for what other people think. And I think that's another quality that I have seen as a trend in women who are successful in business. And I also think that that's something that women struggle with a lot. And it goes toward those expectations. But being secure enough in yourself and your ability to make a decision, to trust that what you're doing is going to be a good decision. I mean, nothing is without risk or fear, but being willing to trust yourself enough to do a good job at it. I think there are so many things that go into taking that kind of risk, and her determination to have the kind of family life that she wanted.
Yeah. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but going back to Charity's interview, you're right. She didn't even calculate what will other people think or what are other people's expectations.
Mm-hmm.
She just had some kind of prompting that it was time for her to make a change. And yes, she took a risk, and she was willing to do so. She, in fact, felt in many ways that God was opening up certain opportunities and doors, that it was meant to be. So she had this faith in her creator, and she had this belief in herself that she could learn whatever this next thing was, that she was going in the right direction. But you're right, she didn't really calculate into, at least didn't talk about it, what will other people think? She just did it.
I mean, it's really fun to watch somebody go through their mental process like that, because so many of us do consider what the expectation is of their families or their parents or the society. But for her to be so independent minded, and she had such a clear determination to make the life that she wanted. And I've seen so many people stay in a job that they hated, or stay in a job that took time away from family, or not pursue. And one thing I didn't ask her that I wish I had was about regret. Like how much does the fear of regret play into it? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole reason I wrote my first book, was because I had this weird thing in my mind that if I died without having done that, that would have been a huge regret in my life, because I had
Yeah.
always wanted to do it. So I wonder how much that factors in. I think there are so many, faith factors and confidence factors, and I'm sure the support of her husband factored in.
Yeah.
But I also wonder how much the fear of regret factors in. I think that when you're driven not to regret the choices that you've made and the way that you've spent time when you're working your family, that's got to be some kind of drive.
Yeah. And even though she didn't use that term, she did say that whatever risk she was willing to take couldn't be any worse than the way it was. So she would have had greater regret staying in that situation and compromising her time as a mama and as a wife and as a family. That was a bigger regret than possibly stepping into something that she may or may not be successful at. That to me was kind of, even though she didn't use the word regret, my guess is that probably did play.
Yeah, you're right. That was another way of saying it, that she did come out that idea of not wanting to regret losing time with her babies and those things. Yeah. I really liked her so much. I thought she was such a relatable conversation. And she was so open about it. Most of us put on the armor of the business person, and we don't have that vulnerability that, yes, in fact, we may be making decisions that are all about the kids or all about the family, when you want to put forth that idea that it's all about the business, because that's what people expect, the society expects, and businessmen expect.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated the fact that she was willing to go so deeply into that thought process.
Yeah, she was just incredibly vulnerable and honest. All I could envision as she was talking, with this tender heart that she had, can you imagine walking into one of her Wild Bird locations in Indiana? I mean, you would be instantly sort of embraced as a sister or as a part of the family. It's like, you love birds, so do I, and she would just sort of embrace you.
You want to be friends with her. Yeah.
Yeah. She was just absolutely fabulous. We have a lot we can learn from this woman. That's for sure. About priorities and decision making and stepping outside of our comfort zone. And of course, to be okay with loving with every single fiber from our being, whether that's a child or an employee or whatever. She talked about the importance of that with her employees as well as her customers. So a lot to learn from this young woman.
Yep. Loved her.
Loved her too.
Want to be her friend.
I do too. Let's put her on the list, right?
Okay.
Our friend hit list.
There you go. That's great.
So that wraps up our time with Women in the Know. Until next week.
The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Woman will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Woman. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com.